The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched higher than most human buildings. Thousands of alien delegates filled the floating seats that circled the central speaking platform. Their forms were strange and wonderful. Some looked like living crystals, others were made of pure energy, and many had shapes that human eyes could barely understand. Ambassador Taemin walked slowly to the center platform. His simple black suit looked plain next to the shining robes and bioarmor of the alien delegates. Behind him, Captain Hyejin and Commander Boram followed in their military uniforms. The aliens stared at them with what humans had learned to recognize as disgust. The Vorthak Prime Minister rose from his crystal throne. His body was tall and made of living diamond that caught the light from 100 suns. When he spoke, his voice rang like bells across the hall. "The creatures from the third planet of Sol system come before us again," he announced. "They ask for full membership in our council. They want the same rights as civilizations that have existed for millions of years." Laughter filled the hall. It came in many forms: chittering sounds from insect-like beings, musical tones from gas creatures, and grinding noises from rock people. But Taemin understood them all. They were laughing at humanity. The hegemony representative slithered forward. Her snake-like body was covered in scales that changed color with her emotions. Right now they were bright red with anger. "These humans have been in space for less than 300 years, she hissed. "They spread across star systems like a disease. They take resources without asking and build ugly metal cities on beautiful worlds." More laughter echoed through the hall. Taemin waited for it to die down before speaking. "Honored delegates," he began, his voice calm and clear. "Humanity has grown to 47 star systems in 100 years. Our population is now 12 billion people across 200 worlds and space stations. We have built trade networks that benefit many species. We have shared our medical knowledge and our technology. We ask only for fair representation in this council." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light pulsed with bright colors. Its words came directly into everyone's minds. "Fair representation? You multiply like bacteria. You consume planets and move on to the next ones. Your species thinks only of taking, never of giving back." The ethereal collective speaker was a being of pure thought contained in a crystal shell. "We have watched your kind for 3 centuries. You fight wars among yourselves. You pollute your own world and then leave to pollute others. You are not ready for galactic society." Captain Hyejin stepped forward, but Taemin raised his hand to stop her. He had expected this. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for years. "We understand your concerns," Taemin said, "but every species in this council once faced the same challenges. The Vorthak had civil wars for 10,000 years before they achieved peace. The hegemony consumed 17 worlds before they learned balance. Silence!" The Prime Minister's voice boomed across the hall. "How dare you compare your primitive species to ours? We achieved wisdom through time and suffering. You offer nothing but chaos and destruction." The vote was quick. Not a single alien delegate supported humanity's request for full membership. Instead, they passed new restrictions. Humanity would remain a probationary species for another 1,000 years. They could not expand to new star systems. They could not build military ships larger than destroyers. They could not establish new colonies without council permission. Furthermore, the Prime Minister announced, "Humanity's current military forces are too large for a primitive species. You will reduce your fleet by 80% within 2 years. Your weapons research will be monitored by council observers. Any violation of these terms will result in immediate action against your home world." The alien delegates cheered and made sounds of approval. They had put the dangerous humans in their place. As the human delegation was escorted out by council guards, Taemin walked with his head high. His face showed no emotion, but Captain Hyejin knew him well enough to see the anger burning in his eyes. "Ambassador," she whispered as they left the hall. "What are our orders?" "We return to Earth," Taemin replied quietly, "and we prepare for war." The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks using the approved trade routes. During that time, Taemin sent coded messages to every human world and station. The messages were simple. "The Council has shown their true nature. Project Hammer begins now." When they arrived at Earth, crowds gathered at the spaceport. They had watched the Council session on public broadcasts. They knew humanity had been rejected and humiliated once again. Taemin stood before the United Earth Assembly that same day. The massive hall was packed with representatives from every human world and colony, Their faces showed anger, disappointment, and fear. "Fellow humans," Taman began, "today we learned an important truth. The Galactic Council does not see us as equals. They see us as animals to be controlled and caged." The crowd murmured angrily. Some delegates shouted insults about the aliens. "They demand we reduce our fleets," Taman continued. "They want to place watchers on our worlds. They believe we are too dangerous to be free, and perhaps they are right." The hall fell silent. Everyone stared at the ambassador. "For 300 years we have tried to prove we belong among the stars," Taman said, his voice growing stronger. "We have been polite. We have followed their rules. We have asked nicely for respect. But respect cannot be asked for. It must be taken." He paused and looked across the faces of humanity's leaders. "The aliens think we are animals. Very well. Let us show them what happens when you corner a predator. Let us show them why Earth's children conquered their own world before they even left it. Let us show them what humans do when someone threatens their freedom." The crowd erupted in cheers. For too long, humanity had been the galaxy's joke. They were tired of being looked down on by creatures who had never faced the challenges that made humans strong. Over the next few days, secret orders went out to every human world. Military factories that had been building trade ships quietly switched to making warships. Scientists who had been working on civilian projects were moved to weapons research. Diplomats and traders throughout the galaxy received new instructions. The galaxy thought humanity was weak and primitive. They thought humans were just another species to be controlled and managed. They had no idea that they had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history. Earth's children had learned hard lessons on their home world. They knew that survival meant being stronger than your enemies. They knew that freedom had to be fought for, not given. The Galactic Council had chosen to see humanity as animals. Soon they would learn why Earth's most dangerous predator was not the lion or the shark, but the human being who had nothing left to lose. 2 years passed quietly after the Council's rejection. To alien observers watching human space, everything seemed normal. Trade ships moved between worlds on regular schedules. Military patrols stayed within approved boundaries. Human diplomats smiled and bowed when they met alien officials. But deep in the asteroid fields beyond Pluto, something else was happening. Engineer Jiwon floated in her worksuit outside the hidden shipyard called Factory 7. Around her, thousands of workers moved like ants across the massive construction frame. What they were building looked nothing like the elegant ships used by other species. "It's ugly," said her assistant, staring at the half-finished vessel. "It's supposed to be ugly," Jiwon replied. "Alien ships are beautiful because they think war is an art form. We build ships for one purpose: to destroy the enemy completely." The human warship had thick armor plating that could stop any known weapon. It carried enough missiles to level a city. Its engines were built for speed and power, not efficiency. Most importantly, it was designed to keep fighting even after taking massive damage. Admiral Yuna arrived at Factory 7 that same day to inspect the fleet. She had commanded human forces for 20 years and knew how to fight. But this was different from anything humans had ever attempted. "How many ships will be ready?" she asked Jiwon as they toured the facility. 47 battle cruisers, 130 destroyers, and 300 fighter squadrons," Jiwon answered. "Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy an alien city. And they have no idea we're building them? The materials come from mining operations in 12 different systems. The workers think they're building trade stations. Only the senior staff knows what we're really making." On Earth, scientist Dayun worked in underground laboratories that didn't officially exist. Her team was solving problems that the peaceful aliens had never needed to think about. How do you destroy a space station that's 3 kilometers wide? How do you kill 1 million enemies at once? How do you make an entire world surrender? "The fusion torpedoes are ready for testing," she reported to her supervisor. "Each one has the power of 50 nuclear bombs from the old days." "What about the kinetic weapons?" he asked. "Even better. We fire chunks of metal at 90% of light speed. When they hit an alien ship, there's nothing left but dust. The aliens built weapons to disable enemy ships and capture them intact. Humans built weapons to vaporize anything they hit. Captain Subin ran the intelligence operations across alien space. To the galaxy, she was just another human trader selling Earth goods to alien markets. In reality, she was mapping every important target in Council space. "The Vorthak keep their main fleet at 3 locations," she reported during a secret meeting on Mars. Each base has about 200 ships, but they're spread out to look impressive. If we hit all three at the same time, we can destroy their entire navy in one day. What about their planetary defenses? Asked General Kyung-soo. Beautiful but useless, Su-bin smiled. They're designed to stop other aliens who follow the rules of war. They won't stop humans who don't care about rules. The most important breakthrough came when physicist Wu Jin cracked the secret of alien communication technology. The entire galaxy was connected by quantum networks that allowed instant messages across thousands of light years. It's an amazing system, he explained to Earth's military leaders. Every major world, every fleet, every government building is connected. Information travels instantly anywhere in the galaxy. Can we use it? Asked Admiral Yuna. Better than that, Wu Jin grinned. I can break it. The whole network depends on quantum relay stations. Destroy those stations and the entire galaxy goes deaf and blind. While the military prepared for war, human diplomats and traders spread across alien space. They weren't spying in the traditional sense. Instead, they were learning everything about how alien society worked. Merchant Captain Minho discovered that the hegemony imported all their food from agricultural worlds. Take out 3 planets and 50 billion aliens starve, Saos, he reported. Trader Yunji learned that Vorthak cities needed constant energy from orbital power stations. Cut the power and their crystal bodies start to crack and die. Cultural exchange student So Young found that ethereal collective beings lived in special atmosphere domes. Crack the dome and they dissolve back into energy. Every alien weakness was cataloged and filed. Every critical system was mapped. Every important leader was tracked. The peaceful aliens had built a civilization based on trust and cooperation. They had no idea how vulnerable that made them to someone who didn't share their values. As the second year of preparation ended, Admiral Yun-ah stood in the command center of the Hidden Fleet. Around her, dozens of ships waited in the darkness between stars. Similar fleets were positioned throughout the galaxy, ready to strike. All teams report ready, announced her communications officer. Intelligence. Teams are in position on all target worlds, reported Captain Su-bin. Sabotage. Devices are planted on all quantum relay stations, added Wu Jin. Supply lines are mapped and ready for disruption, said the logistics coordinator. Admiral Yuna looked at the holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked alien military bases, government centers, and industrial facilities. Blue dots showed human strike forces positioned to attack them all. Final authorization from Earth Command? She asked. Message received 1 hour ago, her aide replied. Operation Hammer is approved. We are cleared to begin total war. The Admiral walked to the main communications panel. Around the galaxy, thousands of human operatives waited for her signal. On hidden worlds, secret fleets prepared for battle. In alien cities, saboteurs checked their equipment one last time. For 300 years, humanity had asked for respect and been denied. They had begged for equality and been laughed at. They had offered friendship and been treated like animals. Now it was time to show the galaxy what animals could do when they stopped asking for permission. All units. This is Admiral Yuna, she spoke into the communicator. Operation Hammer begins in exactly 72 hours. Remember your training. Remember your orders. Remember that we fight not just for ourselves, but for every human child who deserves to live free among the stars. She paused and looked once more at the galaxy that had rejected them. Show them no mercy. They showed us none. The attack began at exactly midnight Galactic Standard Time. Across 17 sectors of space, human operatives pressed buttons, flipped switches, and detonated charges that had been placed months earlier. The first thing to die was communication. Physicist Wu Jin watched from his hidden control room as quantum relay stations exploded throughout the galaxy. Each explosion was small, but the effect was massive. In seconds, the network that connected thousands of worlds simply vanished. Network is down, he reported to Admiral Yuna. The galaxy is now deaf and blind. On the bridge of the UES Righteous Fury, Admiral Yuna watched her tactical display light up with targets. The hegemony's main shipyard hung in space ahead of them. Massive and beautiful, alien ships moved in slow, peaceful patterns around the construction platforms. All ships, this is Admiral Yuna, she announced to her fleet. We are no longer asking for permission. Begin Operation Hammer. The human fleet decloaked all at once. 47 battle cruisers and 130 destroyers appeared around the shipyard like ghosts becoming solid. The alien crews had no time to react. Fire, Yuna ordered. The human ships opened up with everything they had. Fusion torpedoes streaked through space, leaving trails of plasma behind them. Kinetic rounds fired at incredible speeds punched through alien hulls like paper. Energy weapons designed for maximum destruction turned elegant alien vessels into expanding clouds of debris. The aliens had built their ships to be fast and graceful. They had focused on shields and maneuverability. But human weapons were designed to overwhelm any defense through pure destructive power. In 30 minutes, the hegemony's entire shipyard was gone. 300 alien vessels were destroyed. 2 million construction workers were dead. The greatest military facility in that sector of space was nothing but wreckage and bodies. Captain Hai-Jin commanded the assault on the Vorthak homeworld's orbital defenses. Her ship, the UES Vengeance, led a squadron of destroyers against the crystal platforms that had protected the system for thousands of years. "Look at them," she said to her tactical officer, Min Ho. "They're works of art, too beautiful to be proper weapons." The Vorthak defense platforms were indeed beautiful. They looked like giant crystals that caught and reflected the light of the system's 3 suns. They had protected the homeworld for millennia without ever firing a shot in anger. "Target the central support structures," Hai-Jin ordered. "Maximum firepower." The human ships fired everything at once. Explosive rounds designed to destroy asteroids slammed into the crystal platforms. The ancient structures, built for elegance rather than war, shattered like glass windows hit by hammers. As each platform died, its fragments rained down toward the planet below. The crystal beings living on the surface watched their eternal guardians fall from the sky in glittering pieces. On the surface of dozens of worlds, Captain Subin's sabotage teams went to work. They didn't use sophisticated computer viruses or elegant infiltration techniques. They used bombs, power plants exploded in balls of fire, water treatment facilities collapsed into rubble. Transportation networks simply stopped working as bridges and tunnels were destroyed. Communication centers vanished in mushroom clouds that could be seen from orbit. The aliens had built their civilization on the assumption that war was civilized. They had defense systems designed to disable enemy forces, not destroy them. They had never imagined enemies who would deliberately target civilian infrastructure. Trader Yunji led a strike team against the Ethereal Collective's main research facility. The gas-like beings lived in special atmospheric domes that maintained the exact conditions they needed to survive. "Set the charges on the dome supports," she ordered her team. "When those domes crack, the beings inside will die in minutes." "Ma'am," one of her soldiers hesitated. "There are millions of civilians in there." "They voted to restrict our expansion," Yunji replied coldly. "They voted to reduce our military. They voted to treat us like animals. Now they get to see what animals do when they're cornered." The charges detonated simultaneously. The atmospheric domes cracked and collapsed. The ethereal beings inside began to dissolve as their carefully maintained environment mixed with normal space atmosphere. Their death screams echoed across subspace frequencies as millions of ancient minds simply ceased to exist. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on world after world. Human forces struck with overwhelming power and no mercy. They targeted not just military installations, but everything that kept alien civilization functioning. Admiral So Young's fleet destroyed the main trade routes between the core worlds. Without those shipping lanes, billions of aliens would face starvation within months. General Kyung-Soo's ground forces landed on agricultural worlds and systematically destroyed every farm and food production facility they could find. Engineer Ji-won led teams that sabotaged the massive terraforming projects that maintained atmosphere on hundreds of artificial worlds. The aliens had expected war to be like a game with rules and limitations. They had built their defenses to stop honorable enemies who would target only military objectives. They had never prepared for enemies who would deliberately cause maximum suffering to civilian populations. Within 6 hours of the first attack, 3 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations were crippled. Their fleets were destroyed or scattered. Their worlds were in chaos. Their governments couldn't even communicate with each other. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship as reports came in from across the galaxy. Every target had been hit. Every objective had been achieved. The carefully planned operation had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. "Casualty reports, Admiral," her aide announced. "Alien casualties?" Yuna asked. estimated at 2 billion dead, 5 billion wounded or displaced. Unknown number will die from infrastructure damage over the next few months. Human casualties? 47 killed, 112 wounded. Yuna nodded. Those numbers told the story perfectly. The aliens had built a civilization based on trust and cooperation. Humans had built a war machine based on overwhelming violence. Signal all fleets, she ordered. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. Target the remaining defensive positions and government centers. Leave nothing that can organize resistance. As human ships moved to their next targets, the galaxy burned behind them. Ancient civilizations that had existed for millions of years were dying in a matter of hours. All because they had made one simple mistake. They had treated humanity like animals. Now they were learning what happened when you gave predators a reason to hunt. 3 months after the first human attack, the remaining members of the Galactic Council met in a hidden space station deep in the Andromeda Drift. The once proud chamber that had held thousands of delegates now contained fewer than 50 survivors. The Vorthak Prime Minister's crystal body was cracked and dim. Half of his homeworld's population was dead, and the other half lived in caves beneath the surface. The hegemony representative could barely hold her snake-like form upright. Her people were starving because human forces had destroyed their agricultural worlds. The ethereal collective had lost 60% of their population when humans cracked their atmospheric domes. The survivors existed in emergency shelters, their energy forms flickering like dying candles. When Ambassador Tae-min entered the chamber, he looked exactly the same as he had 3 years earlier. His simple black suit was clean and pressed. His face showed no emotion. Behind him walked General Kyung-soo, whose ground forces had just finished conquering the last hegemony stronghold, and Admiral So-young, whose fleets controlled every major trade route in the galaxy. "You requested negotiations," Tae-min said, his voice echoing in the nearly empty chamber. "I am here to accept your unconditional surrender." The Prime Minister tried to speak, but his voice was weak and broken. We never imagined your species could be so destructive. Surely we can reach some agreement, some compromise." Taemin's laugh was cold and sharp. "Compromise? You had your chance for compromise 3 years ago. You chose superiority instead. You chose to treat us like animals. Now you face the consequences." Captain Yoonji stepped forward with a data tablet. She began reading the statistics of humanity's campaign with the same tone someone might use to read a grocery list. 67 worlds under complete human control. 43 species have had their military capabilities totally eliminated. 112 major cities destroyed. Estimated 12 billion alien casualties. The galactic communication network has been permanently severed and replaced with human-controlled quantum relays. She looked up at the terrified delegates. Resource production across former council space is down 90%. Food distribution networks have collapsed. Approximately 3 billion aliens will die from starvation and disease over the next year, if current conditions continue. The few remaining delegates stared in horror. They had built a civilization that lasted for millions of years. Humans had destroyed it in 3 months. "This is genocide," whispered the ethereal collective's representative, her energy form barely visible in its containment field. "Your species will be remembered as monsters. The galaxy will never forgive you." Tae-min nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But you see, that assumes there will be anyone left to remember us as monsters. Right now, that seems unlikely." He walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where he had stood 3 years ago asking for equality. "You want to know the difference between your species and mine?" he asked. "You built your civilization during peaceful times. You had millions of years to grow slowly and carefully. You never faced the challenges that taught humans how to survive." The room was silent except for the soft humming of life support systems. On Earth, humans fought each other for 100,000 years before we ever left our planet. We learned that survival means being stronger than your enemies. We learned that peace only lasts as long as you can defend it. We learned that if someone wants to destroy you, you destroy them first. General Kyung-soo stepped forward. "Your species made war into an art form. You fought with rules and honor and elegance. Humans made war into a science. We fight to win, and we don't stop until our enemies are dead." Admiral So-young activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas under human control. They covered 2/3 of known space. "Your remaining fleets are hiding in the outer rim," she announced. "Your governments exist only where we allow them to exist. Your trade networks function only because we permit it. You have no weapons, no defenses, and no hope of resistance. The terms of surrender were simple and brutal. All remaining alien military forces would be disbanded immediately. All weapons technology would be turned over to human authorities. All worlds with populations above 1 million would accept human governors with absolute power. Species that had survived for millions of years would become subjects of a race that had been in space for less than 3 centuries. Furthermore, Taemin continued, you will provide reparations for the cost of this war. Mining rights, agricultural production, and manufacturing capacity will be transferred to human administration. Your people will work to rebuild what your resistance destroyed. The Prime Minister's crystal form flickered weakly. And if we refuse these terms? Taemin gestured to his aide, Ja-hyun, who activated another holographic display. It showed a list of species that had already chosen to resist human demands. The Corvani refused to surrender last month, Taemin said calmly. Their homeworld is now a radioactive wasteland. The Thrakari tried to organize a resistance movement. We hunted down and killed every member of their species. The Zilani attempted to evacuate their population to hidden colonies. He paused and smiled coldly. We found all the colonies. There are no more Zilani. The message was clear. Surrender meant slavery, but resistance meant extinction. One by one, the surviving delegates signed the surrender documents. Each signature meant the end of their species' independence and the beginning of human rule. As the last delegate finished signing, Taemin looked around the chamber that had once been the center of galactic civilization. 3 years ago, you had the chance to welcome humanity as equals, he said. You chose to see us as animals instead. You were right about one thing. We are animals, but you forgot the most important lesson about animals. He picked up the signed surrender documents and handed them to General Kyung-soo. When you corner an animal, it doesn't just fight to escape. It fights to make sure you never threaten it again. The meeting was over. The Galactic Council that had ruled for millions of years was officially dissolved. In its place stood the Terran Administrative Zone, with humanity as the sole ruling species. As the human delegation prepared to leave, the Prime Minister made one last desperate plea. What happens to our children? He asked. What happens to the next generation? Taemin paused at the chamber entrance. They will grow up knowing their place in the new order. They will learn to serve humanity faithfully. And if they are very good, very obedient, we might allow some of them to live. The chamber fell silent as the humans departed. Outside, human ships waited to escort the alien delegates back to their conquered worlds. The galaxy had a new master, and that master had no intention of showing the mercy that had been denied to them. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Council, Director General Taemin stood in his office overlooking the expanded city of New Geneva on Earth. Through the massive windows, he could see construction platforms in orbit where humanity's newest colony ships were being built. Each ship would carry 50,000 humans to worlds that had once been forbidden to them. The view had changed dramatically since the war. Where once Earth's sky had been crowded with alien trading vessels, now only human ships moved between the orbital stations. The planet that had been dismissed as a backwater was now the center of galactic civilization. Admiral Hee-jin entered with her daily report. She wore the uniform of the Galactic Fleet, a new organization that had replaced the old Council navies. The uniform was simple and practical, unlike the decorative costumes the aliens had favored. Status report on the outer systems? Taemin asked without turning from the window. All pacification operations are complete, Hee-jin replied. The last hegemony resistance cell on Kepler 442c surrendered this morning. That makes it unanimous. Every former Council species is now fully integrated into the Terran Administrative Zone. Taemin nodded and reviewed the data on his display. The galaxy was divided into administrative sectors, each governed by human officials with absolute authority. The complex web of alien governments, trade agreements, and diplomatic relationships had been replaced by simple, efficient human bureaucracy. Any new problems? He asked. The Vorthak on their outer colonies tried to organize some kind of cultural preservation movement. Hee-jin answered. Admiral So-young's fleet dealt with it yesterday. No survivors as per standard protocol. Through the quantum communication network that now bore human encryption and human oversight, reports flowed in from across the galaxy. Production quotas were being met on schedule. New human settlements were thriving on worlds that had been off limits for centuries. Alien populations were adapting to their new reality as subjects rather than citizens. Dr. Daun arrived with her weekly briefing on the genetic adaptation program. Human science had advanced rapidly during the war, and now that advancement was being put to peaceful uses. The latest batch of radiation-resistant humans are ready for deployment to the Gamma sector, she reported. We should have those high-energy systems fully colonized within the decade. The low-gravity modifications are also proceeding ahead of schedule. Taman smiled. Humanity was adapting to fill every available niche in the galaxy, just as they had once adapted to fill every environment on Earth. What about the atmospheric modifications project? He asked. Proceeding beautifully, Daun replied. We're converting 17 alien worlds to Earth-standard atmosphere. The native populations are being relocated to designated preservation areas where they can maintain their traditional ways of life. The preservation areas were essentially zoos where alien species could live under human observation. They were comfortable enough, but the message was clear. Aliens existed now only at human discretion. Captain Subin entered with representatives from the colonial administration. The new settlement reports are very encouraging, she announced. Human population in the former council territories has reached 8 billion. Birth rates remain high and expansion is proceeding faster than projected. Any resource conflicts? Taman asked. None significant. The alien populations have been very cooperative since the enforcement actions last year. They understand that resistance leads to extinction. The enforcement actions had been swift and brutal. When several species had tried to organize underground resistance movements, human forces had responded by completely eliminating 3 entire species as examples. The message had been received clearly by the survivors. General Kyung-soo joined the meeting as it concluded. Sir, we have new intelligence reports from our long-range scouts. They've detected signs of civilization in the Andromeda galaxy. Taman's eyes lit up with interest. Intelligent life? Multiple species? Advanced technology possibly organized into some kind of federation or alliance, Kyung-soo reported. They appear to be completely unaware of our existence. How long until we could mount an expedition? With current technology, approximately 50 years to reach Andromeda. But our shipbuilding capacity is expanding rapidly. We could have a full invasion fleet ready in 30 years if we prioritize the project. Tae-min walked back to his window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, another galaxy full of alien species lived in peace and ignorance. They had no idea that humanity existed, or what humans were capable of when they decided to expand their territory. Begin preliminary planning, he ordered, but keep it classified at the highest levels. We'll need detailed intelligence before we make any moves. As his staff prepared to leave, Tae-min reflected on how much had changed since that humiliating day in the council chambers. Then humanity had been begging for respect from species that saw them as primitives. Now those same species worked in human factories, lived under human law, and taught their children to speak human languages. Director General, Admiral Hyojin said as she reached the door, do you ever wonder if we went too far? Some of the alien species had beautiful cultures, amazing art, incredible scientific achievements. We destroyed civilizations that were millions of years old. Tae-min considered the question seriously. Through his window, he could see the construction platforms where human engineers were building ships designed to carry Earth's children to the stars. Those children would grow up in a galaxy where humanity was the dominant species, where human values and human interests came first. The Vorthak had beautiful crystal cities, he replied finally. The hegemony created art that could make you weep with joy. The ethereal collective had solved problems of physics that we still don't understand. He turned back to his assembled staff. But when we came to them as equals, asking for respect and partnership, they laughed at us. They saw us as animals to be controlled and caged. They chose to be our enemies instead of our friends. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the building's systems. I don't regret what we did, Tae-min continued. Every human child born in the next 1,000 years will live in a galaxy where their species is respected and feared. They will never have to bow to alien masters or beg for permission to explore the stars. He walked to his desk and activated the galactic display. It showed the current borders of human space, vast red zones that covered most of the known galaxy. The aliens taught us an important lesson, he said. They showed us that in this universe there are only 2 kinds of species, predators and prey. We chose to be predators. As his staff dispersed to their duties, Taemin remained alone in his office. Outside, automated monitoring stations continued their eternal watch, scanning for new civilizations that might one day challenge human supremacy. The galaxy was quiet now under human rule. Trade flowed along routes designed for human benefit. Resources were extracted for human use. Alien populations lived and died according to human needs. But Taemin knew that peace was temporary. Somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, other civilizations waited to be discovered. Other species that might make the same mistake the Council had made. When that day came, humanity would be ready. Earth's children had learned the most important lesson in the universe. When someone dismisses you as an animal, make sure they never get the chance to cage you. The stars themselves seemed dimmer now, as if the galaxy's ancient light had been eclipsed by humanity's shadow. And in that shadow, the next generation of humans was already being born. Children who would inherit an empire built on the simple principle that survival belonged to those strong enough to take it.